2019, and we'll call the meeting of the Village Trustees of North Bennington to order. It is 7:02. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Sorry, we're having a little heating issue, but once we get some conversation going, it'll get things warmed up good in
They're
there.
not too heated.
The trustees were, just so that you're aware, we do have some community members here tonight, and the trustees were just taking a short field trip before we call the meeting to order to review a piece of business that we're gonna talk about later in the night, and anybody's free to stay and listen to that, which is about sites for potential increase in cell coverage for the village. So obviously, most people are in favor of that, but at the same time, there's a lot of considerations to factor in when you're looking at citing those things. So, and again, we will discuss that later in the evening. So the first order of business tonight, I have the minutes here, is the review and approval of the minutes of Tuesday, April 9th, 2019. Did the trustees have a chance to review the minutes? And was there any amendments or changes to the proposed changes to the minutes, or are we okay with them? I did review them and I don't have any changes to offer.
I was not here, so I'll be abstaining.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve?
All right, so moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And there's one abstention and one absent, so the motion carries by majority of the quorum. We do have one trustee, I think that, did she say she would come late or absent tonight?
Absent.
Absent tonight. Aaron McKinney is not with us here tonight, but the second order of business is approving the warrant and payment of bills. Have the trustees had the opportunity to review the warrant?
Yeah, I have a quick question on, so Vermont computer sales. That's a new camera, where'd that go?
That actually is, those bills are almost, they're from last summer, and they never got put in. They never got submitted. They were
Oh.
doing their audit for the year and found they had open receivables and came to Norm, talked to
Never
Norm, Norm
noticed.
called me, we looked up, never could find anything like it that we ever paid.
So were those ones we put over at the park?
Yes, there was addition to one camera. I forget the bill, but it was,
Is that Lawson?
our computer guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
He got me a loss right now, but Chuck.
Yep.
And, so, yeah, those were both jobs that he did for us. And
Oh, I just wasn't sure if we got a new one and put
No,
it somewhere and where it was, so there's
No, we
ones from
added-
over here.
we added one to look down at the picnic tables because we've had considerable amount of vandalism on the two doors right
Yeah.
here in the front.
Okay.
And, so, anyways, we put another camera in and that was, I believe, one of the slips. And
Okay.
I have to look through.
And I just noticed that there was a different, when I looked at the details, it was under Park and Rec, so I pay attention to those. You trying to sneak stuff by me all the time. On the details, it had 425, on here it has 550.
Because this is paying two invoices, the other one was doing something
Was
that
just
I charged it to Norm.
Which was more? What we charged?
I don't know.
Okay, that was it for me, thank you.
Is there any, from the maintenance or roads standpoint, were there any expenses that were unusual for the last month, or?
I might have to look, nothing that comes to my mind.
Okay.
The
It
only
doesn't-
things
it doesn't
that
smell
were,
well.
John, are the first two that you are approving on this warrant, but are actually, have already been sent. Those are the only two that are anything unusual. And that was for the utilities business that we had met about.
Okay, and
that
we submitted payment for
Yes,
those.
yes, you walked around and got all the signatures and sent it out a
But
couple weeks ago.
my understanding was I mean, it's all essentially the same ultimately, but I was under the impression that the water department would reimburse for
They
that.
are going to, but they haven't seen it yet. They
Okay.
meet
Right,
next week.
of course, I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure it was clear.
Indeed, they are, yes,
Okay,
they will get a copy of all of that.
so if there's no further discussion on the warrant, I'd entertain a motion to approve the warrant in the amount of $21,362.86.
So
That's
moved.
the old
Wait a
one.
minute.
That's
Yeah,
the,
you got it.
there's a new one she sent later today amended. 21,942?
55?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you need another copy? Or do-
I've not
you
got that,
one?
yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I didn't. I
The
guess I
meeting
didn't
was
see
so
that.
early that we did get a few on Saturday
Oh,
and a
gotcha.
few yesterday that I thought that we should add. So I added
Yeah.
those and then
Great.
Mary
And I
revised the
think
warrant.
it was probably 2 o'clock or later that I sent out that revision.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the warrant for $21,942.55.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And I've got a copy of this.
And there's none opposed. Motion carries. And we have a separate payroll. Any discussion on the payroll? These are just the usual payments to our employees, the total $8,218.22.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. So, as usual, we like to try to take citizen comments first so that we can have people on their way if they don't want to stick around for the more boring items. But the one, I think, that had given us some advance notice was Lisa Whitman would be recognized for a comment.
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Whitman. And I don't know if we introduced ourselves, but we have Mark Boudreau, John Lamson, Tara Lowry, and Matthew Patterson. We're the members of the board.
Okay. We are here to figure out what we can do about the mess that's on Water Street.
Okay.
Not to mention the fact that there have been dogs barking there since Mother's Day weekend last year. I've asked Ross to come because we've been involved with the police department as well, trying to get that situated. I know there is now an ordinance in North Bennington which occurred somewhere in the wintertime. And we've been calling the police to report the dogs loose, to report the dogs barking. The chickens now are in my yard, but that's a whole other topic of discussion. Apparently they were in everybody's yard. He has chickens there now, and apparently plans to buy 2 goats this week as well.
Okay.
I did bring pictures. I don't know if you guys actually need to see the pictures of the property. I don't know if,
I think for purposes of the public meeting, that would be helpful. I think, I know for one, I'm very familiar with what the state and what it looks like, but I think so that, and we're being recorded as well, so we can just,
so anybody here want to see it or just bring it up there?
course.
We all live there. so-
DJ showed me.
I'll take
I live right behind it, so
Thank
I see it every day, I look out my window.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Please
Explain
do.
it to you a
Yep.
little bit. So that's actually from the road. That's the largest pile of garbage that I
okay.
don't know what it is. If you go to the left, that's that as well. That's the actual front. That's more of the front. Over here is where the trailer is just falling down. Just falling
That's an
into-
older picture too, right? Because that's when it's still intact, or is that?
No, I
actually-
just took that it's from here.
Oh, there it is, okay. That's why I was like, wow, looks better than.
It's like somebody took a claw and just took part of the trailer right out. And you look right up through there and see all the garbage.
In the back, this is the back of it, and this is where the dogs are kept. zoom in on it, you can see that there's a camper in there that's not even running, I don't even know why it's there. You can see the coops that are scattered about through, and literally those dogs live in all of this garbage.
Okay.
They're out there shooting rats at night, so we all have a big concern about rats ending up in our property. Cindy has tried to, Ed's wife, has tried to be very civil in the matter and kind of send him messages and let him know when the dogs are barking too much, when the dogs have gotten loose. Pretty much trying to keep peace with everybody. And he gets pretty explicit and mean to her and literally tells her that, you know, it's up to us to buy rat poison, that there's rats there and we're gonna have to deal with it. That the town has given them time to clean it up, and you're all understanding of the fact that he's cleaning it up, and you're all very happy that someone is doing something with it.
I think that, because we haven't had any dealings with him, I think he's got that understanding with the town of Bennington, and I think he went through that, so
Yeah,
we have no, he hasn't come to us at all.
Well, he has no with
So
the town
that's-
of Bennington either, because I've also called Kevin Goodhue, and I've been in dealing with Kevin Goodhue. He sent a letter that he had to respond by April 12th. He didn't get any response.
Yeah, that could be
Kevin
what
sent-
he's referring to as given time.
Okay.
He may be reading into that, because I'm not
He didn't
sure what
get
he's
time
referring
just to
to.
respond to Kevin, that was the first letter. He didn't respond in that time frame. Kevin sent another letter stating that if you don't respond by such and such a time, the next step is court action. And as far as I know, Kevin hasn't heard anything back yet, but I left messages for Kevin and I haven't heard from him. I don't know if he's on vacation, or I know Ross was off a couple days, so we missed being able to touch base. So, yeah.
Right. So, normally, when the board handles a health or safety issue with a property, the preference is to try to address it directly with the owner and work with them to get it cleaned up and to correct the situation. And the way, by and large, what's happened in the past, even with bigger situations, is we've been able to resolve that after a period of negotiation. This is not one of those situations, and the problem is that you don't know that until you're way into it. And so I think that the board is fairly unanimous at this point, though, that it is at that point and we're ready to move toward a legal action as opposed to a negotiation. And so we have contacted the village's attorney to see how quickly we can move forward with court action. The village can't do anything on its own in terms of, like, you know, having our road crew go down with a bulldozer or something. We have to have a judicial order to do something like that. It's my understanding that, you know, Bennington, which deals with it more frequently than we do, that is a possibility that the municipality is able to remove debris from a property and then essentially send the owner a bill. And we'd be looking to try and get a court order to do essentially that. And at this point, we're going to try to move forward as quickly as we can toward judicial action as opposed to waiting who knows how much longer for the owner to do it on his own accord or her own accord. It's sort of an interesting situation too from a legal perspective because there's a property owner and then there's an occupant.
Does that guy actually rent that place,
He
or
rents
did they
it.
just give it to him?
She rents it.
Rent.
She rents
Okay.
it to him.
She rents it.
Okay, she rents to him. The mother or the, or
No,
the dog?
Sharon and, I
Pat.
think it's Pat.
Okay.
Can we just make sure that we have the address of the property correct?
993 Water Street.
993 Water Street, okay. And, Mr. Whitman, is it okay to, if there's comment from anybody else?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Sergeant Eric with the Bennington Police Department. Right now, I'm the temporary animal control officer until they hire a new one. 2019, we've responded to 993 Water Street approximately 14 times. 2 of those times where ordinance tickets were issued for barking dogs, but they were issued to the homeowner, not to the owner of the dogs. She's responsible for the property, and that was the feeling of my chief and my lieutenant, is to issue the tickets to her. In 2018, the 3 that I am aware of, that I handled personally myself, 2 of those actions I went out there ended up in legal action for conditions of the animals, and the 3rd one was an inspection where I found the dogs at that point in time were well taken care of, had shelter, food, and water. So when Bennington police officer responds to a barking dog complaint, we have to actually hear, and there's certain guidelines for a time span that we have to hear a dog continuously barking before we can issue the barking dog ticket. Being we're a department of 23 uniformed officers, sometimes we don't have an officer available to be able to sit for 15 minutes due to other emergency calls. But out of the 14 times, we've had 2 times, and the typical report is the officers pull in, nobody's usually home, you can't make contact with the owner of the dogs, don't hear the dogs barking, walk out behind the place, dogs see them, dogs start barking at the officers. They're instructed to check the health, shelter, and the water and food situations for the dog. And feeding dogs can happen in, different points of the day. Miss Whitman's there, she lives right next door. She probably has a better view of anything that Bennington police would have because of a very small fraction of the time where they're dealing with it. The owner of these dogs I dealt with down in Bennington last May. I did end up seizing a number of his dogs on a warrant. But that was because he was out of compliance with none of the dogs were licensed, vaccinations weren't up to date, he was violating the kennel ordinance. The dogs that he has there, he has 5. Under the town of Bennington ordinance, you can have 5 as long as one of the dogs is no longer intact. So that's all the information for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I give a question?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
short of a police officer being there and hearing the dog bark continuously, is it 15 minutes?
Yeah,
Roughly, right. Is taping, is recording.
yes.
So
even-
if a property owner, an adjacent property owner hears the dogs, starts recording, and that, can they offer that to you as?
Even a handwritten statement, which me and Lisa talked about today, will provide. I believe one of the times tickets were written was off a statement that she provided, a written statement.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go by written statements, recordings. It's just, the property. I'm not here to discuss the property. That's up to you guys. I'm here to talk about the dog situation.
Sure.
And, it takes time to develop something in this nature with the dogs. I mean, it was 6 months before we were able to take any action in Bennington.
Okay, so, yes, sir.
Is there a report in there from your K-9 officer from last year where he heard them from the bottom side of Rich Heights all the way down by the river, and he sat there for 10, 15 minutes listening to them?
I went back as far as October of 2000.
This was before the ordinance was passed, so he said there was nothing he could do.
I was under the belief that the ordinance was always in existence.
It was, that was an issue, it was a clerical issue. We've given the ordinance
Yeah, that's what I
to
found
Bennington
out.
several times, and it's been,
Been omitted somehow?
It disappeared.
I'm not sure, so I actually went and hand delivered it to make sure that we had, so the ordinance was in place, they just didn't have a physical copy of it in their hands that they could act upon, so it was there, it just wasn't there,
And
if that
more
makes
than
sense.
likely, if an officer heard it, saw it, the proper steps were taken after.
Yeah, they finally got that up. I called that night. They've been barking from 7:30 at night till 4 in the morning. Continuous.
Has it improved?
Yes.
When we call the police. Which
Yes.
strikes me that he's either got somebody that has a scanner sending him a message that they've been dispatched because of the dogs, or he now has a scanner? Because now when we call the police, 5 minutes later, bang, the dog shot, you don't hear him again.
And he was, one of the reports,
So it's like, my name is Doug Whitman, I live at 13 Hillside Street. I've lived there for over 20 years. I have never been to a board meeting. I pay my taxes every year. I should not have to be here with this gentleman over some barking dogs because of what? Because somebody can't be responsible. You saw the pictures of the condition that they're living in. You know, cows in a barn live in better environments, much less hunting dogs barking at chickens, rats, and any other wildlife that's up there. It's ridiculous.
You can't say outside.
And the problem that I have is, my wife has been talking with Julie.
Yeah.
Paul's been talking with another gentleman. Somebody else has been talking with another. We need to get one person on this that everybody can call.
Well, we were on, in many of the conversations, we were understanding the last time we spoke, a couple of times ago, that it was being taken, so once we got the police involved, and then it was a good stretch before I heard again, because we thought things were moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then the next time was after we had heard that, was it Mr. Goodhue?
Yes.
Was involved, so once he got involved, it's kind of his thing, because that's what he's responsible for doing. So at that point, he has much more clout and much more capability of dealing with that situation than we do as a board. Again, we have to go through circles, so once he got involved, we were letting him take the lead, we just haven't had follow-up from him yet. We've reached out by email and haven't heard back from him, so we're waiting to hear back from him, so we are.
Okay, so it is up to Kevin though, because there seemed to be, Ross and I were talking earlier, there seemed to be confusion about, is it a North Bennington problem or is it a town problem? Because
Well, so that's where the relationship between Bennington and North Bennington does this. So in part of your tax dollars go to Bennington, and those tax dollars we send to Bennington, those are, here's a fine example of, so our tax dollars that go to Bennington allow for our police department to come and service us. And the same for Mr. Goodhue. He is, we don't have what they've got in Bennington here in North Bennington. Our tax dollars go to Bennington, and he does help, he's helped us before in the past.
Okay.
For things like that. So he is the right person.
Okay.
He is absolutely the right contact to make, and he's the one now that we rely on to basically guide us on our next moves.
Okay.
I do think that the point is well taken, though, that if the board has a point person to make sure that we're on the same page
Oh,
as
sure.
Kevin and the town, so that we are all getting the same information at the same time, I think this process will move forward faster.
My question is, Ed Myers, my question is that Chris is also in charge on the zoning board.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that falls in, because he had told me that if he saw even a chicken come in that yard, to let him know. Now there's chickens, now Nate come over, because we had gotten a conflict with my wife, and I got straightened out, and he come over and goes, I just wanted to let you know, in a couple weeks I'm getting some goats. So here again, he's got dogs, then the chickens, and now goats. So we're gonna wait till the cows and pigs come, and then we're gonna do something that's too late. Too late.
Well, so I would just take issue a little bit with that we're waiting to do something, because I think we're trying to do something. What we have to, what is in our power to do is a slow process and a legal process, which takes time.
It's either a court action or police action.
But the police action is faster that relies on reports, and it depends on what the issue is. You know, if there's a wild animal, like a goat or something that's off a lead, then that's a different situation than a barking dog, which is a different situation if he has a cow or these are all different levels, and so we would encourage people to report, as even for the, simple, this situation is not solved, but at least if you do call the police and then the dogs stop for the night, I mean, that's something. While I'm not saying it's a solution.
yelled at him 15 times.
It's not a solution, but at least it gets us moving.
And I don't think we're concerned that nothing's not getting done. We understand that this is gonna take time. For us, it's already been a year. Those dogs came Mother's Day last year, along with an excavator and trees coming down that same weekend, because we took trees down our weekend. So we thought the place was getting cleaned up then, and it's only gotten worse. And so now what our fear is, it's taken all of us to come together and numerous phone calls and numerous places to go and numerous statements to the police and having to call these poor guys all the time. And so now what we're afraid of is, okay, because he's threatened us all that he's turning that into a farm, all of us on the street. He told us we had to get over it, he was putting cows in there, he was putting horses in there, he was putting pigs. So our concern is, because this is a slow process, how is there a way to immediately stop him from adding any more animals to his menagerie?
A court injunction, and that's where we gotta go.
Well, that property's not zoned for a farm anyways.
Well, so
When the Grantons originally owned it, that place was grandfathered for the animals that they had. When them animals die, that goes null and void. So
Right.
that's like me going and getting a bull and putting it in my backyard, I can't do it.
And they're under the impression that because the
Because it was a
grandparents
farm.
were grandfathered in, they can open a farm now too.
and that is certainly open for interpretation in the court. See, we can't just say, oh, you know what, we don't think that's true and go remove his animals, as much as we might like to.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in what the size of his property is.
He's got probably an acre, maybe an acre and a half tops.
Because there is something in our charter about,
Over 2 acres.
who can have animals and who can't. Now, we allow a lot of violations in that area when somebody has a few chickens. But it might be, that this is another angle to go at it from a zoning perspective. But again, the zoning administrator can only do what's already been done by is issue, and even Goodhue, who, if you don't get a response, the courts have to deal with it. So we have to go to that, I think at this point, after a year, we have to get there as rapidly as we can. And we've dealt with this before with other members of the community, we've ended up in court, and guess what? You don't just go to court, then you end up in mediation, because that's state law. And that takes another 8 months. It's frustrating.
Very. Because I go to work 4 o'clock in the morning, I drive tractor trailer. So I might be that guy that's driving that truck down the road
Yeah.
when you're going by me.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It's just not fair. You know what I mean? It's not fair as somebody who pays taxes, I have a house and he's got his dogs in my back window. And that's acceptable.
Well, it's not that it's acceptable, it's that the only recourse we have for a barking dog is for you to call the police, which you've been doing, and for them to issue tickets. There's nothing else that we can legally do for that, other than make sure that we encourage you to do that, and then when it gets to the point it is now, is to certainly take the next steps. So it's not that it's acceptable, it's just that, and it's the same in Bennington, I assume, there's very little that you can do about a noise ordinance, other than call the police and have them issue tickets.
And just like I said, I don't feel that after a year, anything's been getting done. And I'm very upset.
Is McLeod still part of what's Goodhue's position?
Yes, McLeod is there.
They've kind of, they overlap a
They
little
know
bit
each
some.
other,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think they're kind of the same position.
McLeod has been helpful to us in the past. I know that now it's unclear when and when they won't be helpful, but I think a proper inspection would demonstrate
He is already involved, he's already.
a place completely unfit for human condition.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think it's important to just touch on that real quick, and I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak tonight, but also, make sure that we move through the other issues that we have if we're just saying this. I don't want to just sit here repeating the same thing over and over to you. But there are zoning issues and there's health and safety issues, which are handled by 2 separate agencies, essentially, for lack of a better word. But what, up to this point, what we have basically decided is that there hasn't been a zoning issue presented to the zoning administrator, to my knowledge, that this is a health and safety issue. So the garbage in the yard is not a zoning issue, really. There may be some overlap in some zoning language, but the purpose of the zoning is to look at lot sizes, to look at what you can build, what you can add, how you can, restructure your property and those type of things, which is not what's really going on here. And so we would, unless there's some new development that does impinge on zoning, like for instance, somebody changing the use of their property from residential to farm or something like that, that could be. But regardless of whether it's health and safety or zoning, one thing that is important to remember is that because this is clearly going in a legal direction, everything in writing is so helpful to both the board and the development review board and the zoning administrator. So if it's at all possible to put your concerns in writing, I'm sure the police like to have that as well, although I'm sure they take written statements as well. But even if it's just a letter that expresses what exactly the concerns are, and the more people that submit something in writing, the better. And you can do that to the board as a health and safety issue, or the zoning administrator if you think there is some sort of zoning violation. But as I said, I think we're primarily in the health and safety regulation area at this point. But we would definitely appreciate any kind of written submission as to all, or from all of you, actually.
And now, because the chickens are relatively new, that's within the week?
Yeah.
Yeah. What, are you by law supposed to contain your, is there, because that's nothing, obviously it's nothing we've had in our ordinances, because nothing we've really, nothing we've really come up against.
Stone's Throw here in Shasberry, and I know that I cannot have any hooked chickens, any type of animals like that, and that's right in my deed on my house.
Yeah. But barring that, if they call the police because their neighbor's chickens are running through their yards, is that
That's then not going to be a police matter.
that's not, okay, that was my question, thank you. Yeah, I was just curious.
Attacking somebody.
So if they attack you,
They
then
attack you.
I put up an owl for that reason, because my wife can't stand chickens.
As far as the dog situation goes,
No, no thank you.
I'm getting your statement from you. I can try to meet with the owner of the dog once again, express the concerns, and see if I can't get some compliance that way. I seem to have a fairly good rapport with him, as long as, the respect goes back and forth, he seems to be good with me. But outside of that, once, it's just documentation, and it just gives me more power, or Bennington Police and law enforcement more power to act. If it comes down to a point where, there's another warrant, then that's the way it goes. I mean, it's not like there's somebody said, it's not falling on deaf ears.
But the way to get around them missing it, because we're totally convinced that he knows we're doing this, and so he is able to get the heads up, is a written statement. So we can write a written statement and give it to them. So if you're hearing the dogs going crazy, or you're seeing him do something bad with the dogs, or you're out there all day and you don't notice that anybody's come to give them food and water, you can write a statement and give it to the police department, and they can work off of that. So even if they don't hear the dogs barking for 15 minutes, if I can write that statement and they can work off of that.
So it almost sounds like a better plan from here is to actually, when it starts, record your time yourself, call after the 15 minutes, that way if he does have a scanner, you've still got him in the violation of the noise ordinance, and he won't be able to play the game of.
And I actually usually don't call for a couple hours. I let them go for a couple hours, and then when it starts feeling like there's gnats in my head, that's when I call.
They're hound dogs, just so you guys know.
Yeah, they're hounds, so they're gonna bark.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand hounds bark, follow the training, by the way. And hound dogs they need space, and that's just not the proper space for the hound dogs. You know what I'm saying? They need a country home where there's 25, 30 acres of land, and they can bark all day long and nobody's gonna hear them. You know what I'm saying? But it is ridiculous. I mean, let's say we have the chickens in our yard, the dog comes running over and Where's the leash law? Even if you got a dog that's not hooked up like all the other dogs are, the one that's running free should still have a leash on if you're gonna take them out to go to the bathroom, right? I mean, my dogs have to have that. My dogs are kenneled, so I don't have to worry about it. And most of these people right here, all their dogs are either on a leash or kenneled. So, for one dog to run free in the neighborhood, again, it's just not right. You know, and then he calls them and he takes him forever to get the dog to come back because he just wants it around everybody else's yard.
And we spoke a little bit about this, what could help you there is also picture documentation. So when the dogs are in your yard, snap a picture. If they're doing their business in your yard and nobody picks it up, take a picture. It's about all you can do.
Yeah, I have 3 pictures actually, of your dog in your yard and the yard across the way.
See, when I called, I just talked to the dispatcher and I tell her, please don't dispatch us. Can you let Ross know or S Legacy? Legacy know that.
What they'll do is they'll generate an incident number. So they'll do a complaint, and I would just say on it, at some point in time, we'd like to do a statement about the dog park.
All right. I just tell them my address and they're like, nope, so-and-so's dogs again? Yep. So they know it. The dispatcher even know, okay, we're calling them out, such and such property.
So can we identify a point person, because that was the thing that I was worried about, because Paul was talking to one person, I'm talking to Mark, Aaron talking to somebody, Ed's talking to somebody. So is there one person that?
I'm happy to continue to field phone calls. You've got my number, you can share it with everybody. And I told, and I'll be honest, I said, call me every day.
Yeah.
Because if you want something done, you call. And
Yeah, you've been very good about that.
That's why I'm sitting here.
I do
Because
have
if I
to
didn't
say-
want the calls, I wouldn't be sitting here, so.
I do have to say, anytime I've called you, you've been very responsive and very helpful. If you didn't know the answer, you said, I'll get the answer, and a few days later, you call me with an answer. So I just want to say I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's,
Really are
again,
doing a
that's
good
why,
job.
that's why we do what we do, but, and I'm happy to be that person, so.
I just think it cuts down on confusion as well, if we're not all.
And it leaves one, I think it would just leave one person to keep the ball going on that end of town too.
Mhm.
Right.
So,
And we'll reach out again, because we did reach out by email and just haven't received anything back, and that was 2 weeks ago.
And just so you know, I mean, I'm so tempted to just say, I understand your concern, I understand, which I don't want to say.
Yes,
Because I don't think anybody understands the concern unless they live there.
correct.
So I'm so sorry that this is happening as a member of the community, but I'm not gonna pretend that I know what it's like to live there. But I do, from a legal perspective though, I do wanna reiterate that as much as we can do in writing is the best policy, because if anybody does email, writing and email is fine. It doesn't have to be an actual written letter. If you prefer a written letter, that's absolutely fine. The village post office box is 427. And so anybody can feel free to send a letter there in addition to the phone call. So I know, like, the phone call is gonna be quicker, but if you put your thoughts down on paper and just send it, or send an email, that's great.
Pictures,
Yeah, pictures, recordings.
I'm using fine. You can email them to me. I really, being in the position I am, I can't go up there. It's called curtilage. He has a reasonable expectation of privacy for any representative of the government if you go and take pictures. But if you guys can provide me with pictures, I can look at this, keep looking at
A
this.
private property owner can give you a picture of what they see out of their backyard as part of their
Yes.
complaint.
I could go to that yard, I believe, and take pictures myself.
Come to my house.
Yeah.
I mean, we just
Get up
had,
on my deck. You can
we
see
just
it.
had an older couple move in to the
Yeah.
house next to ours
Good to see.
here, a few months back,
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel sorry for them, they came from way up the northern part of the state, and then they moved down here, and they gotta deal with that. They keep to themselves, they're very quiet. She talks, he doesn't really say much, he might give you a nod or a head wave, but,
They're elderly, they've got
But,
medical issues.
she's on oxygen, right?
Yeah.
She's on oxygen, so I'm sure they don't wanna hear that stuff either, but they're not talking to us at all, because they kinda keep to themselves. They just moved in the neighborhood, and I'm sure that's the last thing they wanna move into a neighborhood and hear is all that stuff.
I extend anybody on the board that wants to come up and walk in my backyard.
Yeah, I'd always like to see it.
Come to our yard,
You guys are more
all day
than
long.
welcome to come in my yard anytime you want to.
It's 13 Hillside Street,
Even
fourth
if I'm
house
not-
on the
Ours is
right.
5.
Go past the camper and you're there.
So I think we are gonna have to move on to our other business tonight, but we are, so I don't want you to think that what we're saying is keep giving us complaints, because that's what we're gonna do. We're pursuing the legal action at the same time.
Okay.
So this is gonna be a continuing problem, so let's continue to file complaints so that we can continue to have more information and evidence, but at the same time, we are pursuing the legal avenue to try and get a court order as soon as we can.
And I'll do my best to kind of keep touching base with whoever's doing whatever they're doing, so that if you do call, I can at least give you a heads up on what I believe is going on, or how things are moving.
Okay.
And it
Where
could
do
be
we
nothing
find your
for a bit,
emails?
but
Where do we find your email?
Are they on the fun site?
Oh, boy, you know how many times I've had to try to find that site?
if you call me, I'll just give it to you. I mean, I
Okay.
can give it to you right now, actually, if that, I'm happy to.
Do you have?
Oh, yeah, I've got some right here.
Okay. 'Cause I gotta do that. Yeah, but I have to sign it, I think, in front of you, right?
Yes.
So I have to sign it.
So the fund for North Bennington site is just northbennington.org.
Yeah.
And you go there, I know it has phone numbers.
Show off. Get a card, huh?
List of officials. Yeah, just.
That's how I think I found
It
it.
has phone numbers, and it needs updated. 'Cause my phone number's not there. You're tired one.
I mean, you know, even before this, like, I had a student who was staying on this school year a few years back, he's driving with my son. And I had a car sitting up in the corner, front corner of my property, an unregistered vehicle, okay? They were on me night and day and night to get that car out of there. I said, did you ever take a look down back and you worry about this one car sitting here in the corner of my yard? The car was gonna be gone at the end of the school year. His parents lived in Rutland, but he paid the tuition to come to school down here, so he could do the sport that he was doing along with my son. And I mean, they really came out hard on me, and they were gonna find me this and find me that for that car being there. So we actually got it out of there before, you know, and they wanted. I mean, I've been through other hassles with like putting a temporary framework up for a deck that I built, just to see what it was gonna look like, picture what it was gonna look like. It wasn't even attached to the house, and they sent me letters, they were gonna find me this and find me that, but I'm like, geez, I gotta be more concerned about the place out back and my little framework on my deck here and all this and that. So those are kind of things that I think they need to reiterate in their head or whatever, you know. Okay, this guy's got a car, but this guy's got 10 yards of garbage sitting out in his backyard, you know? What's more important, you know what I'm saying? I knew the car was gonna be gone after the school year was up. It was gonna go back to his parents' house and everything, you know, but we got it out of there beforehand, so all that stuff stopped. And then like with the deck, I just took the deck frame and I moved it out in the middle of my driveway. I said, oh, I hope that makes everybody happy, because it will be built the way I want it. And I had to shorten it up a little bit after a little hassle, but so, I mean, some of those things are just plain crazy to deal with, you know? But that's the worst there is, so.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Thank
see
you
ya.
very much.
Have a good night. We have a treasurer's report.
I did send you a number of reports earlier, including that, and I also sent you, just thinking that this meeting might go longer, a list of a couple of bullet points of things to point out. If you have that, I don't need to read it, other than I would again point out that we will be in a fairly good position to actually spend some money and do a couple of road projects. We spent next to nothing from our budget so far, and we will have $85,000 to put towards those road projects if we so chose to completely use up the budget for the year. So if there is anything going on, it'd be kind of nice to get some of that in before the end of the fiscal year, or at least get something started. And I know there was some discussion about doing Royal, is that the one?
Yes.
Royal,
Ace's
right
Way.
away. and possibly school, doing something on that, but I know that one's maybe a little bit more difficult to nail down.
Especially before the end of the school year.
Well,
We're talking the end of the fiscal, is close to the end of the school year.
yeah, but again, you know, if you've got something in the works, whatever, at least we'll know that there's, we will probably carry it over yet again, but everything that we carried over from a year ago, we haven't spent that yet either. So, and I know there were all kinds of reasons for that, what with all the water work going on around. But it's, I guess, in a way, a nice position to have, that we could actually get a couple of projects done. But we also have the expense of a truck coming up, and I'm not exactly sure. I think we're planning to push that into next fiscal year, but wasn't there some discussion about maybe we'd have to pay something in June for that truck or not?
No, it's not gonna be, they're not even gonna start building it till July.
Okay, so we're not, that's, okay, good, that's off the table then. So if you had a chance to look at those bullet points, if there were not any other questions or concerns there, I won't go on there. But I would mention that the electric vehicle charging station grant went in, so thank you for everyone who helped with that. I'm excited about that. I think we're in really good shape to do that. The other grant application that's out is for the sidewalks, which I also think is a great one for our village. And next Monday and Wednesday, there's webinars that you really need to sit in or know about. So if we're thinking of applying for one of these, so I'm definitely going to do that.
This is the bike ped grant from
This is the
V-Trans.
bike ped, which also includes.
Lori, is this at all related to the safe routes? Because if
You
it
know what?
were, we would be in a little bit of an attractive position, having gone through the process and being denied
Right,
in the past.
and I pulled all my paperwork out the other day regarding that. So when I was reading it through, I did see some similarities and I did recognize some names. So I
Might be
sent
worth
an
kind of
email
looking-
out
Oh, good, okay.
to see if it was related at all, because I mean, well, you know. I mean,
Oh, yeah, no,
Laura
we
and
did
I
a lot of- we did a lot for
I
that, and then-
stacked.
yeah.
So if it can be helpful, then I would gladly help.
Is that 10 years
I
ago?
think we
About
just.
10 years
the-
ago.
So the upper main sidewalk was done under a bike ped grant.
Great.
Yeah.
That was the Better Roads grant, was that the Better? No,
Uh,
that wasn't the Better
no,
Roads.
that was-
Okay.
And then,
Can't remember.
Wasn't transit enhancement,
well, I'm just wondering what the roof project was.
that's transit enhancement,
Okay.
a stretch, but that's what it might be.
So I think, so I think we'd be okay. I mean, I'm just thinking, if we just received one for Upper Main and we apply again, I think it would be unlikely to get the same grant, but I think it's been a couple of years removed now. So, and plus that one was actually first received in 2013 or something, so it's,
Well, nothing took forever.
and then we got more in 2050, but it's, yeah, I think that's.
But
I can work
you
with you
don't
on that,
know
'cause I've
until you
applied.
apply.
I've applied,
So,
I've
yes.
done that process
Yes.
before, so you would
Yeah.
have to work on
Yeah,
that.
so I think it would be a great thing to do, and I'm happy to work on those and see what we can do. And,
I did hear, I got an email from Steve Love that said
Oh,
that
good.
they think that they have all the information that they need, and he just, with the completion of their tax season, he just needs to circle back around to that and make sure everything's
okay,
finalized, but he's gonna get back in touch with me probably, I would expect tomorrow or the next day.
oh, okay, because I did send an email, but it was probably much too late this afternoon.
Oh, you sent another one? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know
think
you had
it's-
one after, I don't want to be a pest, but,
I think, I said in mine, Mary may have contacted you, so, just thinking that you might have.
okay,
So if yours came after, I'm sure he laughed about that, but that's,
Okay.
so, but we're all on the same page there.
And that's for the
all right.
village audit. So those.
Yes.
You know what we're talking about?
Oh, sorry, yes, the
Yeah.
village audit is with
And,
Love, Cody and Company. So that we'll have that.
Oh, and then the other one though, I did have a question on, when I sent that email out. Do we intend to use the $8,000 that we spent on sidewalks that was not budgeted? Do we intend to take that out of the sidewalk reserve? Because we will have, in 2 more weeks, in a couple more weeks, we'll have $25,000 in that sidewalk reserve. I can take the $8,000 out of that and put over budget. But if we say we're not gonna do any highway work, or not a lot of highway work, then overall, we're not over budget.
So
We
should
can
we wait
defer
to
that
figure out?
decision.
I
So should
think,
we wait to
For
figure
another
out what
month.
we're going to do with the
Yeah.
highways before we make that?
Yeah.
and I think we'll have more information on that.
Okay.
When we have a report from the highway, but
Okay.
I think we're definitely looking, I mean, we're definitely looking at Bank Street sidewalk, and that's gonna use all that and more probably,
Okay.
so.
Well, that just depends on which fiscal year it's in too.
Right.
Because then next year we'll have even more of a reserve to add to it. Okay. I'm done.
Okay. Highway?
You might wanna wait till me till last, but this Bank Street sidewalks, first time I heard about that, so.
Okay.
We've got quite a pile of paper here.
Okay.
You wanna get that,
All
those
right.
guys out of the way.
Well, a short message from the water department is that they're opening bids for their project on Thursday. So that's the water line replacement project, and that hopefully will be completed in 2019, this year. So as long as they have reasonable bids come back Thursday, that should proceed with construction phase this summer and be completed, which would be great. And again, the bulk of that project is going to be in the Woods and Shaftesbury and not really affect us, but there are definitely some sections that will be bothered downtown, but relatively short periods of time, given the pace that they worked at last year. And so I don't have anything specific from the DRB or the Planning Commission. Chief Myers, I don't think is here anymore.
I would like to put a big shout out to the fire department and all the other fire departments. Great work, incredible success story, really, over at the college.
Yeah, we had a major event there in a fire last Tuesday.
Thursday.
Yeah, but I think you were able to inspect the building, Matt?
Yeah, it was frightening,
Damage is significant, so, and it's good to know that the response can be
but
that.
it was contained to a third of the building or less, and really, no one was hurt except one fireman. But he's okay, and they got a bunch of very valuable things out of there. Those guys and gals work really hard.
Yeah, and it's funny because it shows you how important that is when something major happens and then they're ready to go and deal with it that way. But even before that, so I was ready to come with just a small anecdote, and then this happened. But last month, there was a call when we had the flooding, or that North Bennington doesn't usually take the brunt of flooding, but there was major flooding in Bennington and all surrounding areas. It was on the Tuesday of April break, if you're. But there was a kayak in the water. Somebody had been kayaking in the Roaring Branch, and because it was high water apparently, and terrible idea if you ask me, but I happened to be listening to the scanner that day, and the call went in at like 4:30 4:44, and by 4:47, you could hear Chief Myers on the radio going, "Where are we headed? Where are we headed?" And he's already in the truck on Northside Drive, like halfway there. And it basically took them 4 minutes to get from here all the way over to the Brooklyn Bridge in Bennington. Because it was a cold water rescue, they knew that they had to be there basically immediately. So, and it was incredible how fast they were able to respond to that call. And then Bennington College happened right here, and again, we showed what they're made of. So, thank you. So before the meeting, we had a site visit with a representative here from, his name is Tuck O'Brien, he's from Tilson Technology, and he was showing us a site for a cellular installation, let's call it, which would boost cell phone service in the village. And the two major areas that need increased cell service, on essentially a per capita basis, are the downtown center and Bennington College. And these would serve those areas. And we've invited him tonight to just talk to us a little bit about what is envisioned by the project and how it benefits the community, and what it's essentially what we're looking to do is to try to coordinate the aesthetics and make sure that these sightings are not strongly objected to by the board or by the community, so that we can work together as opposed to being at odds, especially right off the bat. It's always better to know. More information is always better. So we welcome Tuck O'Brien.
Thanks. What's the photo?
You can just have a seat right here, I think would be great. And there is some paperwork that I forwarded and emailed to everybody, so.
I brought just a quick, some handouts for you guys. Nothing for showing, just background of who we are and what's going on here.
Thank you. If this is this, oh no, this is
And then I brought 2 copies, which that's what I submitted. Did not have borrowed it.
You can have it, sure.
Okay, I'll give it right back. As the chair introduced me, my name is Tuck O'Brien. I work at Tilson Technology, and our subsidiary, SQF, is looking to do some work for a client, US Cellular, and place 2 utility poles in locations around the downtown of the village and over by the college for the purpose of improving network connectivity in North Bennington. And we, a little bit about our company, we're headquartered in Portland, Maine. We do work like this across New England and across the country. We also do fiber optic work, whereas laying new cable, new connectivity. We also do network design and traditional macro tower construction and maintenance. This particular approach is really related to the goal of increasing the availability of better network on a more granular area through the use of small wireless facilities or small cell. You hear a lot about 5G, and small cells will be crucial for 5G. The antennas for that type of bandwidth require, they have a lot more bandwidth, but the range is much shorter, so they need to be more frequently placed. I added some slides about who we are, which I won't belabor. But we do a number of things related to this. This is one of the activities we do for our clients. not just cellular companies, but also other entities. We do some work for municipalities. One of the things that's coming to the forefront is coordination of traffic signals in a lot of places and increasing the availability of bandwidth for public safety and the use of data, mobile data for public safety officials. The SQF entity, moving on to the third slide, has gotten local telephone exchange approval in 49 states, I should say 49. We still don't have it in Idaho. And so we are treated very similar to the telephone company and are allowed under public utility law in those states to place telephone poles, utility poles in the right of way, also to own those poles, and to also place streetlights or other infrastructure within the public right of way, which is generally, Vermont is a little less controlled in this regard, but in a lot of states you need that approval in order to do this. So what we do is work closely with municipalities to figure out where these things can go, and then explain how the network is going to work. We have about 5,000 sites currently under development. This is just showing where we're active currently. And a little bit about what I've just kind of heard about North Bennington. I spent some time on the website, read through the plan extensively and spoke to folks, took a bunch of notes on our site walk. In terms of, it's obviously an exceptional example of New England Village. It's got a strong downtown. It's got a pretty amazing 19th century architecture. It's got traditional industrial heritage combined with an ongoing manufacturing sector, which is really impressive to see. Really impressive abundant natural resources. It's a regional educational arts and cultural hub. And you talk a lot in the plan, or a little bit in the plan, about the importance of connectivity and technology, but also the importance of keeping the quality of place and being sensitive to context. And so that's the balance I'm trying to strike, of trying to figure out where this can go going forward. The two sites that the radio frequency engineers identified and that we initially selected, one of which is right in the center of the village on the left bank, and that's where we walk to today. And obviously, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time if I'm just rambling. I was trying to get through the presentation so I can take questions. And the second one is out by the college, at the intersection of Harlan. Two very different contexts. Obviously, the center of the village is really historic, left bank especially. That side of the road is pretty free of any aesthetic clutter. There are some other opportunities we talked about, including behind the gas station, and I will work up a couple alternatives. Over by the college, it's a different context, and I'm interested to hear what people's feedback is on that one. And to give you some examples of some different types of installations that we can do, I provided a bunch of pictures. There is some traditional, we can do it in aluminum, we can do in black, traditional overhead street lights, some more localized town and country. And that might be something I will reach out to the college as well, and we'll try to keep it on the public right away. And then a traditional wooden utility pole. There's 3 examples of what those can look like. And lastly is my contact information. So that's basically just a run through of what we're doing. Basically, the sites get identified when there isn't an easy answer for pole attachment of just going on an existing pole. That's when we start looking at placing a separate pole, which most of the, a lot of the wireless carriers don't have the ability to do that. And there's 3 main criteria they're looking at. It's either a place where there is no coverage, a place where the coverage gets overwhelmed on a regular basis because the availability of the cell network is pretty limited, or because there's some sort of particular greater connectivity that they're looking for, whether it's public safety, transportation, or from some sort of business or economic. A lot of times in more rural areas, you'll have a business center where all the employees show up in the morning and leave at night, and the cell system fails when they're leaving to call their kids. So that's another location we'll look at. Again, I'm here on behalf of SQF, but the client that hired us for this is US Cellular.
So, have you spoken with the college?
I have not spoken to the college.
First of all, that's not public right of way, that's all privately owned. So where that is on college land. So if
Is that just where that red thing is, or is that whole stretch is private?
It's private,
To here, this private.
Okay,
yeah, so anywhere along
Have to
that.
be-
Okay.
have to be- This is Harlan Road.
Okay.
Not This is Jennings Drive, which is a private road.
okay,
And they own out to here somewhere.
okay.
I mean, it just might make it easier if it's something they're, amenable to, and there's a big parking lot right there, and it's, like I said, it's very different.
Which I assume probably has lighting.
It does, yeah.
There's light actually.
There is lighting out there.
Yeah,
With a college, they probably wouldn't do it anyway, so it might not be.
So that part of Harlan Road that is public right of way, is there, it doesn't seem that there's too much on that road, so is there, I haven't been out there, I'll go out there in the morning, I don't even know if there's utility poles.
This is college here,
Yep.
Harlan goes out, really from here out.
Oh, it's that one, okay.
And this is, it's an extension of Harlan, but it's, and then Jennings Drive is this all the way down to the main entrance.
So that whole area on both sides of all of those roads is part of the college
Yep.
property?
Yep. And they have quite a bit of leeway in their zoning, you know, about what they can do, and so it could be really anything we can or would say about it. However, with respect to our downtown village, I would definitely love to explore, you know, those other things we discussed.
Well, I'm happy to do that.
Or again, even a new pole location in a place like that other spot we looked at, you know, that's just off, you know, tucked somewhere. You know,
It seems to me that the ideal was the one by the parking.
right, because I could see where that too might be, you know, obstructed by trees and stuff, but, you know, but we'll get you in touch with the landowners of that property.
And what was the name of the entity again?
It's called the Sage City Syndicate,
Safe Cities?
Sage.
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 And so I'll probably work up 3 other sites, and so just to make sure I heard everyone correctly when we were walking, there's generally a preference for not adding more stuff to the right of way, so if we could find an existing pole, like the Safe City property, not in the sidewalk, would be preferable. If it's on the city, if it ends up on the city right of way, it can be off of the sidewalk. That was something that Mike had said, just because of plowing and more clutter in the sidewalk. Want to avoid clutter in the intersection, obviously respect the left bank building. And generally support of improved coverage, but there was a question of the amount of US Cellular customers that are in the area. I think it goes both ways, and people don't have US Cellular because of bad coverage, but, and I try to just kind of talk about it, whether it was any of the carriers, because it could be another carrier, it just happens to be that one. And I think someone raised the point, I thought was a good point about providing people with choice. So yeah, I think that's basically it. I would happily go back to the RF folks, look at what the map says. I'll go out there in the morning and take some GPS locations of that pole and see what we can do. I'll pick a couple other locations, and then I'll go look at the map with the folks and see where the limits are, because we might be able to go further down the street too. I think
Another spot might be the Catholic Church off of, Houghton Road. Because there's, you know, there's kind of up the hill from where the consolidated,
Communications.
It's about 300 yards this way, it's right there. From the bank location, I would say it's roughly about.
It's a high spot.
300 yards.
It
from
would
there.
be hidden by a lot, but it would be above all that and could.
And it also has parking with lights, so
Right.
any of the existing poles.
yeah, and just 2 points, I'll definitely look into it. 2 points, with this technology, the line of sight down to the road is important. So, because most people are in cars.
I see, right.
Yeah, and so if it's set too far back, the more stuff that's in front of it to get to the road is a challenge. And then, as I mentioned in the walk, I'm more than happy to engage with any entity. It's, what we found though is that the public right of way ends up being the easiest place and one of the only feasible places where we can get the type of agreements to roll this out and the kind of the amounts that
Is that because the private entities are more likely to be wanting compensation?
And there's compensation issues where these things just aren't as economically robust as a macro tower, but it's also just hard to continually negotiate. When you're doing a macro site, like the one we were talking about before, you got a wide coverage area, it's a big thing, you can put multiple entities on it, and it covers a wide area. When you're doing these smaller poles, if you have to come up with a different deal for every pole, it quickly becomes really challenging. That being said, if we're only doing one, it becomes less of an issue. When you look at it statewide, in a lot of states we're working with the Department of Transportation because you have to put one every some odd feet. That would likely be the case in North Bennington ever. It's just kind of this
Well,
one.
that was my next question is, where does this stop? So we get to the 5G and another company comes in, AT&T wants to upgrade, they have horrible coverage here because the tower is blocked by mountains. Now they want to put every 300 feet down every street. Another one of these? I mean,
Yeah, so it won't be.
we as an entity say no, we don't.
Yeah, and that's where, that's a larger philosophical conversation, how the FCC is gonna step in and the federal government, if they're gonna prioritize rolling these out, how that's gonna be handled. I think if they're rolled out appropriately, they become, on the downside, more stuff in the right of way, but they become in places that are still above ground utilities. They don't stick out as much. I don't see in a place like North Bennington, there will ever be 15. There might end up having to be 3 at some point. It's different than a larger city, even Burlington, where you need them every few, because you do have coverage, and there's probably not enough demand once you get outside of the center village for them to make the investment anyways.
Right. And the bigger towers are more likely to cover that stuff out in the rural areas.
Yeah,
anyway.
or if they don't, there's, not enough people to justify it. But that being said, I don't want to kind of sugarcoat any of that. It's a very legitimate concern for the village to think about proliferation and how you want to manage that. And I'm happy to give you guys some examples. I think from what I've seen, the most you'll end up talking about, even long-term in this area, is at most 3, because those are the 3 major carriers. A lot of times they can co-locate on one pole, especially if we're able to make that site work behind the gas station, because that pole is a little bit. But the smaller poles fit in with the existing utility poles better, so if you did have 3, it just looks like 3 more power poles.
So what is it we need? Are we approving just an understanding to explore? Are we doing anything?
I wasn't really asking you for anything. I think I was expecting to have to do some more work on left bank. I framed this because there was no real structure in the ordinance, or I framed this as a request for approval for these sites. But I will happily look at it, the Bank Street one to move, and if the Harlan and College is not even on public property then. But I'll go talk to the college, and if that's not beneficial, I'll move it.
It may be very beneficial.
No, that's what I'm saying. If they're like, great, here's the location to do it, then we're done. I don't really need, the village doesn't have any say, it doesn't matter. And if I have to move it to the road because the college, for whatever reason, I'll come back and tell you.
Okay, great. Who would be his contact up there?
Yeah, I'll give you my card, and I'd love to follow up to figure out who I can talk to at Sage Cities and the college. I can come back to meet with you guys again if that's helpful.
Are you out of Maine, or do you work?
Portland, Maine. Yeah.
You don't want to come back.
It's pretty nice here. No, I mean, it's not, I want to make the drive every day, but if a trip back to kind of walk through some issues, but we can do the rest of it digitally.
Yep.
I know. We should talk to.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure a call to their
Yeah.
switchboard, whatever they do.
Yeah, so I think we'll just take that under advisement, and then we'll hear back from you.
I think going forward, if I'll just reach out, I have John's information, and I'll give you where we get to. I'll come back with some alternatives, and maybe you guys at another meeting. Best case scenario, that one site works, Sage is great, and then we're done, because both sites will be on private property. If I do end up having to come back to public right away, I'll try to give you guys some options, and you can discuss and give me feedback. Thank you very much.
And I think we have a better understanding of what we're looking at too, so if you propose a different site, then we'll know what the idea is.
And if there are any other questions, I think there was an FAQ I put together in the package, but if anyone has any other questions, happy to answer.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Sure, thanks.
Highway?
All right, so we got a couple things. First is the Regional Planning Commission. There's with the, basically it's a clean water program, where they're taking in, all the runoff and ditches from the roads. We've talked about that on the upper West Street, trying to solve that issue. But anyways, there's some paperwork. They have, granted us like $4,600 to do some ditching and some other stuff, on the Overley Road from the three-way intersection, down to the railroad tracks.
Where is this from?
BCRC.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so we have two people, because you really need an excavator to deal with this. So what we can do some in-kind work, which would be our hauling. So we've got, two bids. One's Matt Morris for $2,000, and the other one is Mark Autorado for $5,300. So that's kind of a no-brainer. It's gotta be done by June, so we gotta get on that and get that squared away.
It's gotta be completed by the project.
Yes.
We make a motion to accept the bid. We need to do that. Make a motion to accept the Morse bid, does that work?
Second.
And what's this one?
He's doing ditching on Overley Road, on both sides of the road.
From Burkhardt down to the railroad tracks.
And then, so the side that Mary lives on, that side's up, pretty much done. You know, it just needs to be re-tuned up. The other side, that bank, same thing we talked about on West Street, it's gotta be moved back about a foot and taken down, and then there's a little, stone tail to go all through, so. We should be able to, when we need to hire some traffic control, because traffic needs to maintain through there.
And
But
that-
within that, in us trucking, we should be able to, complete that project with that.
That landowner, on that other side is notified and aware of all this, or is this all gonna be within?
No, we're all within our right of way.
Still be worth talking to her.
We can certainly
Mary
tell her
Lee.
what we're doing.
She's the gal out walking really early in the morning with the best.
Yep.
And her dog, yeah.
This is, this proposal does not include culvert work,
No,
and are we doing any?
not on that stretch. No,
No,
that's on Overley Road. That's Overley Road, that's nothing.
Okay.
No, but are we, what about,
That culvert on Overley is sufficient and worked
Which one, the big one under the railroad tracks? Or the big one?
just before them?
Yeah, that's a whole nother, that will need to be changed someday, but that's gonna be a very, very, very expensive.
that's the other side of the tracks, isn't it?
No, that's on our side of the
I
track.
thought that was,
No, that's not.
that will be part of this though,
No.
because it is, because that's a water touching whatever.
It's, yeah, no, but
They're-
not these guys,
Our
that's
certificate is gonna require us to make that to standard though, right?
someday, yes, when
Someday,
it
but
failed,
not
yes.
now. Okay.
And what about any work proposed for further, down, Goodrich and towards Lori's place? Is that,
That's not,
I know that's nothing to do with
This is all-
Is that
this-
something- is that
this
still-
is a piece of, this is some paperwork and a map that the state, and somebody drew a bunch of pink lines on it and said, you will
Yeah.
complete work on these roads. And they give you, one, you have to pick a small section and they almost give it to you the first time. And that's what BCRC just threw out for us as an achievable project with the assets that we have.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion's pending, and is there any further discussion on that particular motion? Hearing none, if all those in favor of that motion indicate by saying aye. Aye.
You got them right there, so I just need them back. I don't need them back now.
So
At
that
some point, I want to get a copy of all that, so I can,
There's two here, you can have, pick one.
I'll just take your, you can, that looks like an original.
Yeah, that don't matter. Okay, so here's the next one. The next one is, for guardrail. So we've been doing a lot of work up on, Pleasant Street. Yeah, Pleasant Street by McAdoo Rugs up there. We've all met with the second homeowner on the road before. We've done some roadside mowing. There's an old fence there that just, it wouldn't stop a Matchbox car from going over that bank. So I called a couple contractors. The only one that wanted to even reply was Lafayette to buy used guardrail, which I think in that scenario, that's where we should, because it's a little rusted, it'll blend in a lot easier, a lot faster. For $3,577, and basically that is 208 linear feet. So that covers after the Art Carlucci property. That there's a telephone pole right there, so we start a little bit past that, so there's enough in case that ever needs to be changed, and run it down through. Again, that's all well within our right of way. It's a little bit more money to go with the 8-foot posts, but I think because of the bank, we should do that to get a decent, and then we can have a nice spot where we can put our mower on, we can mow it, we can get rid of all that junky fence and fix that problem.
So is the installation something that you guys could do, or?
No, that's a done deal.
That's
It's
installed.
turnkey.
Do it.
Put a road close sign on the bottom. No, again, we'll
So that price you just said was
turnkey.
them doing it, okay.
Turnkey. We taken, you know, certainly on a couple projects that we're gonna talk about here tonight, you know, we gotta tell all the neighbors, inform them this is what we're doing, and this is the day, give them enough, you know, leeway. And, you know, they wanna contract that with another project, which is, you know, that's fine, as long as they come this summer. It's not really a big deal for us. But it's just something, you know, we do little pieces here and there, it's just something we should catch up on.
And that's a single day closure?
I think so, yeah, and it's not even really a closure, but we can't have people going in and out, in and out, in and out. You know, cause they gotta move the truck and, you know what I mean, if they ends up with a real problem, then we're gonna have to have a real problem, you know, but.
Make a motion to accept the Lafayette bid for the guardrail on Pleasant Street.
I don't know, so we need to do projects like that.
Probably not. Because it's not,
Certainly are.
there weren't two bids, it wasn't, we looked for more bids, but.
But was that I'm not even sure that wasn't a bid that was proposed like by the village or the board, that was
No,
something
it's
that
just
you sought as the.
Right.
Yeah, just need to be done, and I called a couple people to get a couple of prices, and
All right.
met with them, and there we go. So, I'm starting from least to most expensive. So now we're into some paving that we need to do, okay? So we went to, and I don't know who's got emails, but
I got it.
I emailed to a couple of you. So, we'll start with the roads, okay? One is Royal Street. Royal Street is shot. It's all destroyed. We can take a field trip someday if somebody wants to, but you all drove on, it's terrible. So, there's Royal Street, there's School Street, that needs to be just really have a good tune-up on it. And then there's Upper West Street, which again is shot. The deal is Royal Street needs to be reclaimed, so you bring this big, like, It's a big rototiller for asphalt. And what it'll do is Royal Street's got nothing but clay underneath it, so it's gonna zip up all this, all our blacktop, it's gonna turn it into gravel, and it's gonna, you're actually adding gravel to the road with the material that's already there, you're not hauling it out. They grade it, they pack it, they roll it, they pave it, but this machine is ungodly expensive to move it and get it from A to B's. So if you get a day's worth of work out of it, you save your money. So we met with 4 pavers, Pike, Peckham, and Fuller, and then also with Bedoin, who's done a lot of work for us, and they used to do some of this stuff. They opted out on anything to zip, to Bomag and zip up the road. But they did put in a bid for School Street. So here's the deal. So paving, Pike Industries is $137,854.60, and I'll give you copies of all these tomorrow. So that's a noticeable number. That gets your attention. Those are probably, Royal Street is probably one of our worst roads that we have.
Wait, so that Pike quote is for everything?
That's turnkey on those
On what?
3.
Royal School, Upper West.
Royal Street, Upper West, well, that would be paving west back to the intersection, but they're zipping half of it. And then, School Street, paving it and paving the little ditch on the downward side of School Street. Okay, and I just open this one. So Peckham Road is 187, 159, so it's considerably higher for the same thing, full depth reclamation with calcium and brine. So then we have Fuller's bid, which I just got today.
Who are these people?
Fuller has been doing a lot of work for the town of Bennington for the last 3 or 4 years. They're out of Dorset. Danby. Guy named Tom Fuller is the owner of the company. I don't know if he's actually sits on the paver, some of the other guys, but he's the owner of the company. We've met him, he's a pretty nice guy. So his price is $74,155. Then.
No. His price is 140.
Where?
So it's Royal School, Upper West together are 33,000 plus 11,000 plus
Oh, yeah, okay.
74,000. So 85 and 33. About 120.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at it on the screen, it's 3 inches wide.
Yeah.
Right, so now we got, so he's got it broken out into Royal Street, and he's got it broken down into School Street, and then he's got it broken down in Upper West. And then he also added, which I asked all of them to add, is Ace's Way and Susan Taylor Lane. And I know the numbers are a little bit, they certainly make it a little more noticeable, but those roads are, again, they're on a hill. You go around the corner on the upper street toward Jim Sullivan's house, and it's just starting to deteriorate a little bit, and that hill is gonna turn into just like the other one. And when they're here, if they paved from the bottom to the top, one coat, it would be a lot better job. So.
But, yeah. So where's, 120, now we're looking at 150 grand from this quote for all of those projects. And we have what budgeted?
What'd you say we had left over, 80?
We have budgeted 90, but we have about 85 left.
Plus next year.
You don't have to do all this year, I believe.
Well, the mobilization.
This-
seems to be
this-
kind of important.
These, when you do, you do them all. Now, West Street is paved at 2.5 and 1.5 inches, which is 4 inches. Your biggest gain of strength is between 3 and 4. But that road is flat, so that's not really terrible to go 3 inches on. So you could just cut back a little bit of money. We could cut back on Ace's Way and Susan Taylor on one of those two.
Well, the shims are something that the mobilization aren't that big of an issue. So like you said.
Well, when he says shims, that's the top.
That's, I know.
The deal with doing that at the same time is, so there's not a joint.
Yeah, okay.
It's paved. When he goes in and he goes up, he paves and finishes it.
The point is these roads that he's not bomagging, he's only doing 1-inch shims on.
That is correct.
And, you know, so in theory, one could look at school Aces and Susan Taylor as being very different projects than Royal and Upper West.
That is
Where the
correct.
big truck, where the big grinder has to come in.
That's right.
However,
The water department wants to change 3 water lines on School Street. Now, School Street's kind of like a little bit of a roller coaster right now.
it's a mess.
So, you know, there's certainly a couple other streets in the town that also need to be zipped up. We're picking our worst of the worst, and then you kind of work your way backwards. You know, we could not zip Royal Street, it's gotta be done. There's really no other way to save that road. If we put anything on it, it'll be garbage in a year. We wasted our money. West Street, you could shim and pave, but by the time you do the math and fill the ruts, you're cheaper to grind and pave.
Yeah, that only adds another $5,000 to a $60,000 project, to a $74,000 project to grind, to reclaim it. So, but I do wanna see I just wanna see something done on School Street. I mean, at the same time, we're talking about some other alternatives, but that's not gonna happen.
So now we have, and the fourth bid, okay, is just for School Street. Okay, and it's to just pave the street without the gutter is $15,800, it looks like.
Whose quote is that?
That is from Bedoin.
So that's more than what we've got with the swale covered.
Yes, I mean, again, I gotta print that out so I can see it on a bigger paper.
It's 11,700.
Yes.
If we do all projects, that's the price, right?
And when blacktop, it's all about tonnage.
Yeah, no, I get that. So these prices are only good if we choose to do all 3 of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Or do the big ones.
So I guess the question, actually, we were just talking, if we time this right and decide we are gonna do all of it, we've got the 85 from this year, if we planned it just after the end of the fiscal year, we could use the 85 plus what we've got budgeted for next year. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And what is budgeted for?
What is,
And where does the truck fall into any of that?
Doesn't, that's road.
Just, yeah, we budget
No,
for,
the budget and the cash flow is, actually, when we did get that big truck, it's gonna be, most of that is gonna be financed. We can get a 3 to 3.5% municipal bank loan.
Hell, I got a 3% on my car the other day.
Yeah, so we'll do it right through a bank. If you can get a better one, I have a deal, if we will, probably not. So anyway, let me look at this. I thought we knocked it back a little bit, but I can't remember if we went all the way to the. I'm looking at it and trying to see. Highway maintenance, 86.
okay, so the total we've got is what, 170?
170.
And now, and we're waiting for another 30 back from the state. You
No, we
did-
got
We
that,
got it,
Okay.
that's included in the 85 now?
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, she got that.
So if we make the commitment, that's basically it.
Well,
Yeah,
that would be a lot. for
Well, no,
sure.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm saying we just gotta make sure,
But-
and by doing something so soon into the fiscal year, we better hope something doesn't come up.
well,
It's kind
I agree with your statement, but we've waited for the last 2 fiscal years
Yes.
to do something that we could actually afford to do.
And that wasn't me saying we shouldn't do this, I'm just saying that's what we gotta pick.
No, I get
So
what you're saying.
I'm leaning toward we should, again, if we try to break this up, we're gonna spend twice as much over the next 3 years doing it.
It's fine, I really want to talk to them about an extension project on the school street. We want to add, you know, it's small compared to but that whole section north, the whole parking lot at the school needs paved, but also adding like 5 parking spots where there currently aren't any. So, I mean, that would just be something that the school district could have a conversation with once we.
I think any of these, well, excuse me, I think Bedoin and Fuller, and you could certainly call Mentrone who did the sidewalk, you know, any of those guys could pave that. If, you know, I don't know if Tom would want to do that at the same time he was doing the road, if that's who gets awarded the bid. It doesn't seem unreasonable that, you know, he would do that first and then do the other one. You
I guess
know,
the question would be also, if we needed a little more time for the water department to deal with the lines on that street, and there are not issues on the others? Would
No.
Fuller be interested in doing all the projects but school for similar money? You know, in terms of tonnage price?
Do you know when they're planning on doing the?
no, we would have to set up,
We
he knows
actually
it,
talked to them a month ago, and they were okay with getting that done. I know.
The water department, you said water lines.
Yes,
So they would commit to doing that before we.
Yes.
they've already went out and asked for at least one bid from a vendor, to do the 3 water lines on School Street.
Because it essentially saves them money if they coordinate with us, because they don't have to, if they do.
Well, they
it-
gotta patch the bottom, but, yeah.
But if it's coordinated properly.
Right, and I think what would happen is that they would leave them gravel.
Exactly.
And then we would get an add-on from our blacktopper to patch the 3 holes
And then,
and then
Sure.
backbill them for that. Just that, and then after that, then, you know, then we pay for the top, because like you said, we're gonna pay for the street.
can you, I guess I want to compare all these numbers, because the numbers here aren't that far off from what we were seeing. I need to see all bids together, is there a way that we could, I don't know.
We need to make a spreadsheet of
Do
it.
you scan?
Yeah, we can,
And that's a lot of money. Here, send us, the 3 bids, there were 3, plus whatever auxiliary, you know, and give us.
it's hard to read, and that, you know, the biggest one that we need to break down is School Street, because there is the local guy that does a lot of work, if he's comparable, but if it's, you know, where that ends up, you know, again, that's tonnage, and all that price goes on tonnage.
Well, but that, yeah, that's what I understand, like, so, a shim is 234 tons, and that's $85 a ton. Shim and overlays.
Which
half
wheel
the
did you look at?
tonnage from, on a different project, and it's $73 a ton.
Yeah, which one are you looking at? Tell me the street.
Upper West Street. That
Upper West.
project, he's.
Right? It's cheaper because it's flat and it's fast.
Okay.
School Street is slow. You
Because
gotta
it
deal
just
with a
needs
lot
to
of
be
people.
filled.
That's, the difference is he can lift up the truck body and go like hell. Where, you know,
Okay.
where School Street, you gotta screw around. I mean, we're gonna have to have a little,
We're gonna have
you
to
know,
define the right of ways, I think if anything, more define the edges of that road better.
and what?
School,
There's no define, there's a curve on one side and an edge on the other. That's the end of it.
not really an edge anymore, but
That's right.
there's gardens moving into the lawn, into the road. I want.
Well, that's why new sidewalk, or excuse me, new asphalt
Take care of that.
would fix the problems.
Yeah.
After we do the 3 digs, you know, it'll be,
I'd like to also just meet with you and John and whoever else over there. We had some discussions, kind of looking down on it from the library the other day, talking about school, you know, things the school need to be looking at. And, you know, we're gonna be removing a few trees. You know, could that sidewalk that we did a quick fix on 6 years ago now, or whatever, could that whole thing be moved
in front of the school.
in front of the school? Could we move
Yeah,
towards the school?
yeah, any of that could be moved in front of the school, but the problem is when you go down, even if you wanted to, you know, cite eminent domain, you get past there, the 3 homeowners that are there, they have no front yard now.
Oh,
You know, you
no,
couldn't,
we wouldn't be able to do it there, but in front of the school, we might have room to do it, which would allow a slip lane to allow cars to.
well, in that, I would be all in favor, but that's why they spent all the money to put that on the back, the backside.
I know, but it's big money anyway to pull all that crap curb out and put the curb in, and the school needs more parking, the people who live there need, you know, less, we need to strictly enforce the drop-off stuff.
Well, that's,
It just needs to be a little.
And the
better.
school is talking.
that's not a
about-
highway issue, that's a school
No, and
issue.
they're talking about doing that, but if they had, you know, if there was an hour every morning where yes, cars could park there, and yet it wasn't blocking traffic because there was another 4 feet even of, you know, white lines, this is not road, this is pole.
Well, I would say this, if you propose to the village side to come out of the highway side to move that sidewalk and build parking spaces, we're not building 4-foot parking spaces, we're gonna put a whole car over there. Because, you know,
Right.
that road to plow in the wintertime,
I get it.
and God forbid that there's an emergency with an ambulance or a
Yeah,
fire
yeah.
truck, it's not gonna go down. You know,
I get it.
it's ridiculous, so,
But we also, if we blow $150,000 on all this, there's no money to even consider those kinds of changes to School Street. So, you know, right now, what we're needing to do is make it a smoother road, better defined. Maybe raise it up enough that the curbs aren't tearing the bottom of your door off when you do get off at that, you know, section.
well, those curves on School Street are not high.
I've opened a door in a car.
I think it's just the way your car sits as it
Yeah.
opens, so it's not the height of the curb, it's the,
Yeah,
I don't think your door's open.
I mean, we're not grinding that road, so it's gonna go up, it's not gonna go
Yeah.
down.
But they'll still taper to the edge.
But that's, you know, that's where that is. And again, if anybody wants to come and take a ride with me, I can show you the things, we can throw a straight edge on the road. But, you know, in turn, in doing all this, then we really need to be committed to fix our problem on Upper West Street with our banks. And even if we don't go into the road, we say, you know what, that's it. We're just gonna ditch it well within our right of way.
That's all beyond the pavement.
No, that is at the end of the pavement.
He's saying,
That
you're
is all
saying that's
on
in addition
pavement.
to, you're saying that's a price in addition to this though, right? Is that what you're saying?
Which that,
Yeah. Ditching.
Upper West Street, yeah, no, that's an addition, and that's money that,
But that's all stuff that we can do.
that you can do.
Yeah.
It
And
just,
again, something you should coordinate, if you're gonna put the time, effort, and money into
that's right.
fixing Upper West Street, why leave something that's gonna make it
That's right.
deteriorate quicker? And if we could do it mostly on our own, it's something it makes sense to just at least plan it, if we can't do it, we can't, but
So we're saying, when we're quoting Upper West Street, we're talking from the end of the pavement, somewhere near the Mile Round Woods access, back to the intersection. At
No,
top
the other
of it.
way. The other way.
Down
From where
to-
people
down to the
park,
library?
where people park, no, where people park at going into the backside of the McCullough property,
Yeah,
headed towards, they call it McCullough Road, actually. West Street turns into McCullough Road, but heading towards the Harrington Road to New York. That's just that stretch of road. There's a couple hundred feet,
To
that
the
the
town,
road,
that's the water work you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the road work, the pavement.
the
work
pavement goes from the intersection on the front of the McCullough mansion
To the end.
to the, where it's not paved anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, from here to, no. We're not.
That's the corner of Park.
What do they, I guess,
Parking lot.
the breakdown that I have from Fuller
And that's on-
Yes.
says reclaim, grade, and compact 3,593 square yards.
That's square yards, that's a lot, that's.
And then it
When
says
it, are you talking about West Street?
West Street.
Okay, West Street, it's, with that, it's, the whole thing's not getting zipped. It's about halfway on the McCullough property, right where that old pool is that Allen
Yeah.
owns.
Okay,
That's where we're starting to zip the road. From there back is just gonna get
Paved.
shimmed and paved.
But both sections, so that, because that section by the pool is bad, and there's sections closer to the woods that are, woods parking.
Yeah, that road's gonna get, from one end to the other, it's gonna get completely,
But that section will be zipped.
yes.
And you're saying the section that's not zipped might do okay with 3 inches instead of.
No, that'll only get, that's just gonna get an overlay.
Shim and overlay.
They're gonna,
Oh, okay.
they're gonna make it and then top the whole thing back to the corner. So the top is this, the top is one piece from the front to the back.
Where they bow mag, they have to go full base, 2.5,
That's-
and 1.5.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And they'll make a transition to,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, so it'll go up, but that'll add some gravel into that road.
So if we can see those, maybe see this kind of compared to one another.
What
I'll
would,
try, I don't have a day off, but I'll try to.
I can do it tomorrow at 7 o'clock.
what's
Okay.
your proposal for that, though? Do you want to have a board approval of the project? And you've got bids now and you want to move forward?
I've got bids now. I think, you know, we can wait and I'll put them side by side. Again, you know, the Fuller one came
But
in.
you don't want to wait to the June meeting?
No,
No.
no, and we need to decide on the other thing, because we've tried to meet with all the homeowners involved, all the landowners, property owners. And everybody wants a little bit of something that really is, it's kind of out of our reach, you know, and, you know, I think that, you know, we're not gonna go in there willy-nilly and like tear everything apart. You know, there's a wedding involved in one of the homeowners, and I certainly, you know, very sympathetic to that. But, you know, some of the stuff has to roll, and we really need to,
What are you
we need to
talking
make a
about?
decision.
What are you talking about?
West Street.
Oh.
There's more people getting married than just your daughter this
I know,
year.
Not that.
That's why we're not chip sealing your road.
You know,
Yeah, you better not.
it's true that that could be a major disruption if that happened, you know, anytime during that time, not just for them, but, you know,
Yeah.
what would the timing be for the bow mag, the water, the drainage,
It's
cut
all,
the bank back?
it's all on, when it comes, again, these pieces of equipment, they try to lump them together to get better mobilization rates. And I can't tell you exactly what the other communities, you know, Bennington being the biggest one in this neighborhood, you know, what their project schedule is for this year. You know, they have at least one water line extension, if not two, that they're doing. You know, I can't answer that question until we sit down and say,
They'll say,
all right.
but we'd have, I would think that we may have the ability to say, even if they're lumping it in with somebody else, if you look at the speed that, I mean, a paving project happens once it's here.
It's fast.
You could say, look, you're gonna do this on a Monday or through Friday, no Saturday work. We could write that into our contract, and we could say that, you know, it wouldn't go over a week, so you would.
Or has to be done by this date.
Right.
And if it did happen to be the week before the event, that would really be unfortunate. However, it wouldn't be on the day, because it wouldn't be on the weekend. And they'd have a brand new road to drive on, so.
Yeah, there's a million different scenarios that we need to, that we need to talk about and details once we award a contractor, when to work that out.
Yeah.
That is one event that I think that we should be, if it's in our power to be, in any people, resident that is having an event like that. And if it's all in our power to work around it, within reason, that's fine. If it, for some reason, say, oh yeah, I won't work Saturday, but it's gonna cost you another $25,000, you know.
Well, and that's the other thing, is the Department of College doing more weddings. And in fact, they just got a bunch more because of the Southern Mount College involved. So,
But most of them are on Saturday, so
Yeah.
again, I don't think that's a big deal. Speaking with the Tom, originally, like we use Royal Street as an example, they don't want to let it sit. Sometimes you take a road and you bow mag them, calcium, you roll them, you let them sit for a while. The way that hill is, they're pretty much gonna be, you know, working today on one thing, you know, they might
and that's,
do all the zipping that they need to do and then come back around and then start doing all the paving.
and that's okay from the standpoint of the quality of the job and the road, and
Yeah,
they're running a Packard, they're running those,
you know, the things at a hill,
yeah.
it's crazy steep. You can't, all of a sudden now it rains and
Imagine
that's
driving
not,
down that.
that's not his fault, that's not our fault, but, you know, but somebody's gonna eat that cost and that's not gonna be him. You know, so, that's the next meeting.
What else you got?
So then the other big thing is the air conditioning unit that we found, that they sent everybody.
And so does that come out of the same pool of money we just spent?
No, I would think that that would come out of maintenance next year. And again, I would tell you, we use that, parks probably, I'll take it out of. But when you ride around in your roadside mowing, we try to keep our roads as well as we are. The trackless was the same way. The only tractors that weren't like that were our open cab tractors, which are not quite safe, but inside that whacker is like being in a solid.
Yeah, so what was that quote? It was,
It's like $4,200.
yeah,
We would have to install it. It's an aftermarket unit, but it's made for that machine.
and it's used?
No, it's brand
It's
new.
brand new. It's made for the machine,
It's made for it.
aftermarket. We knew this was coming. We've had the whacker 2 years. We knew it was,
No, we had to whack it longer than that. But we use it a lot. Now this, you know, I would tell you that our next one will have it installed in it right from the factory, and that's where they're all making them. Well, when our machine, that was kind of like, it was an option. Bennington has bought that on theirs.
yeah.
They discontinued it for a little while, and the company has brought it back.
Yeah, I don't see any issue there personally. I mean, if you gotta get the mowing done on a
If it's
certain
in your
day in the
budget.
summer, then you gotta do it, and you shouldn't be sitting around thinking, well, I have to organize my schedule around a different day because it's so hot and I can't be in that machine. So I think it's just a part of doing business.
I have no issues with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any
I
objection?
mean, always tried to do it on a cooler,
Yeah.
and it's unmerciful in that thing. When you're there, you're sitting right on top of the hydraulic pump, you're sitting on.
But you've got other things to worry about than organizing your schedule around that. I mean, you gotta get it done when you have to get it done.
Okay. All right, so,
Do you want to continue the meeting?
I think we need to continue the meeting. Two quick things. I think we're gonna try to move forward on the truck sale to Shaftesbury at some point, right?
we gotta, they're in no hurry, we have to move
I just
cautiously.
wanna make sure that you're communicating with
Yep.
their foreman so that it's all good.
No, we still, matter of fact, it's been sitting there for a week at their shop.
Okay. And then the other thing was that we're up against a deadline with the depot roof project because it's supposed to be all done and dusted on the 15th of May. And there's not been good communication between the general contractor and the mason, and so, and the architect. So we're trying to make sure that gets done by the 15th, hopefully. If it can't be, then we look at another extension, but I don't think the state is happy with that because we already extended from October to May, so it should have been done. Weather has
Well,
been a
look at
huge
the weather.
issue.
Yeah, it's rained every damn day since
I don't wanna like be
All
in a
last fall,
position
too.
where he tries to get it done quick and it's not good. But on the other hand, I think at some point, I mean, you know, there's certainly been delay there.
What are the impacts of not making it done and dusted by the 15th?
I spoke to one of the contractors today. Matter of fact, we just spoke to him during this meeting because, about the heat. And I'll tell you right now, it's not gonna be done. You know, now it's in a discussion game about the brick and how quick they got approved and the rain. You know, we've had a rainy couple weeks, as we know, the fall, and that was one of the reasons it got pushed back, so I don't know if there's,
I would assume there would be some kind of leeway, given the weather we've been.
The state has to, I mean, it rained every day last fall, so like boom, 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 boom.
Right, and so again, I can't, that's as furthest I wanna discuss with it. And if anybody walks outside and you look up, there's quite a bit of work to be done before Monday, and I don't know if the bricks are even here yet.
It's gonna rain.
And yeah, we're
So-
just bad weather coming in too, so.
So I would hope in some of those emails, and I haven't seen one back from the original contractor who had the job, the big contractor. But I'm sure that somebody has said something somewhere.
Okay. Can I make one announcement?
Of course.
Tom Fells, you know, who has been working up upstairs for the last few years on the Frank Howard art collection. And we've allowed him that space to do that. He's curated a show at the left bank that is there now. Some really very interesting work. But in appreciation, he has gifted the village one of his paintings, which is above the safe over there.
Nice.
It'd be nice to have better lighting. Maybe we can figure something out with that, but, you know, Frank was an artist that really started to kind of get a little bit of notice beyond the region, and I think it's an important piece. He did a lot of work. There's a painting in the show of the left bank of the bank. It's pretty cool. So check that out if you can, and thanks to Tom for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just got two real quick things.
Yeah.
Okay. First, Norm, the person's gonna help with the Welling Field. It's gonna have to be a weekend, so
Okay.
I'll do it with him. We'll take care of it, hopefully over the next couple of weeks, and I'll let you know when we're gonna do that. We've got somebody that will survey the land for us to figure out what we have to do to bring it all to one level.
Figure out the volume.
Yeah, but he's a resident, gonna volunteer his time, and we'll talk about
If
it.
he wants some test holes dug so we can tell how deep what the material is within, you know, a foot or something, let me know and get them marked ahead of time, or if he says that here,
Okay.
then we can get them dug so we can look at those.
Okay, and the other was the conversation we had about the failing culvert down by the park.
River Road.
Down by on River Road driveway. Next week, I believe she gets back.
You mean on the Rich Lane or Rich
Yeah.
Heights area
Yeah.
there?
So I've been having conversations, she wasn't available, we were talking about maybe this week, she's not available until next, so I'm gonna email her when she gets back, we'll set something up to take a look at it.
Okay.
That was it.
That was the actual landowner.
Yes,
So,
this is the landowner.
I would, without further, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue this meeting until, or do you want to just
You want-
continue it till next month and we'll deal with this stuff somewhere well before that? Can you do that?
No, I think
I think we have to give it,
A week?
we gotta give it time, don't we?
We can put the spreadsheet together tomorrow
I think
morning.
we should continue to.
How soon do you want to how soon do we need to make a decision on this?
I think, soon, you know.
Like within the week?
Next Tuesday
Yeah,
at 7?
late last, I mean, these guys are filling up work,
So by the end of this week?
yeah.
Is that the
We'll say Tuesday.
I think that, I think you guys can,
Thursday?
we can have this spreadsheet, you can all have it tomorrow, and I think, comments tomorrow night, and
Thursday?
Yeah, we don't necessarily have to,
It's a quick meeting, I mean, if we just. How does the meeting work? Can we have people here, somebody on a phone?
yeah,
If you
if
can make it
everybody's
here?
looked at the material, we're just,
I can do Thursday.